and can help fire up your metabolism, allowing you to burn more fat in less time. And all it takes is just 30 seconds per day. The best part, you don't have to spend any additional time in the gym, meticulously track how many calories, carbs, or fat grams you're eating, or completely give up on any of the foods that you love. Because in the next 3 minutes, you're about to discover the truth about dieting, including one of the biggest reasons why less than 95% of the most popular diets fail to deliver lasting results. The 3 closely guarded secrets of the billion-dollar weight loss industry, and how completely wrong the so-called weight loss experts really are. Plus, an unexpected discovery that uncovered a simple yet powerful metabolic truth based on a 6,000-year-old practice that can alter the way your body uses stored fat for energy. This simple practice alters your metabolism, forcing your body to gobble up even the most stubborn fat from the deepest, most troublesome areas of your body. And the clinically proven, easy-to-use 30-second daily ancient energy practice that you can start using right away to eliminate pound after pound of excess body fat while boosting your health and supporting your heart, blood vessels, joints, and more, as well as the studies that prove it. So please, if you or someone you know is struggling to lose weight, make sure you stay with me until the very end, and more importantly, while this presentation is still online and still available. The weight loss industry is massive, generating an estimated $72 billion each and every year. And that's just here in the United States. I mean, think about it. If their approach really worked, Americans would be the thinnest, fittest, and healthiest people on the planet. And I'm sure, as you know, that's hardly the case. Instead, we're sicker and fatter than we've ever been. In fact, 3 of the largest weight loss companies in the world were all started prior to 1983. And since then, obesity rates in America have skyrocketed, up over 400% with no end in sight. So I can't imagine that they're exactly thrilled with me sharing my method. They'd rather you stay a customer for life. So please, keep watching and keep listening, because this information has the potential to save your life. Just imagine not having to worry about your weight. Imagine the peace of mind that comes with feeling healthier than you have in a long time. Not having to hear about the mean and heartless things people say about you behind your back, or whether or not your significant other still finds you attractive. Instead, with what I'm about to share with you, you'll watch as your stomach flattens, your back, hip, and thigh fat melts away. You'll look forward to stepping on the scale each morning, confident that the numbers you see will be lower than they were the day before. You'll continue to enjoy all of your favorite foods on occasion without guilt, knowing that each bite will now be converted to fresh, usable energy, and less likely to be stored as unwanted body fat. Your skin will glow, and people are likely to wonder what you're doing differently. You'll confidently wear your most revealing clothes while everyone stares in amazement, their eyes glued to your now slender, slim, fit, and healthy body, desperate to know your secret and how you made such an incredible transformation in such a short amount of time. So let's stop beating around the bush. It's time for you to reclaim your body and break free from the shackles of unwanted belly fat. So let me start by properly introducing myself. Hi, my name is Chris Johnson. I'm 46 years old, and I live in a small community just outside of Denver, Colorado, together with my beautiful wife, Morgan, and our 3 amazing kids, 2 girls and a boy. And just to be clear, I'm not a doctor, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, or any of those things. Instead, I'm a husband, a father, and I work as a civil engineer for a large international contractor. Over the years, I've helped design and build some of the most beautiful bridges in the world. And with each new project and each new challenge, I've learned just how strong a bridge can be. I also know how one miscalculation, one error, or one small structural failure can completely destabilize a bridge, causing it to crumble like a Jenga tower. And the same thing happens in our body. A small plaque in an artery, a microscopic virus, or even one faulty gene can turn the body on itself in the blink of an eye. That's why, a few years ago, I really started to worry about my wife, Morgan. You see, we met in our early 20s, and it was love at first sight. Well, at least for me. See, Morgan was one of those girls whose smile lit up a room when she walked in. She was beautiful, confident, and so slender. Let's just say she got more than her fair share of attention. We dated for a few years and then finally got married in our mid-20s. At 29, she became pregnant with our first daughter, Madison. Now, like I mentioned before, Morgan was slender when we met. She was a track star in high school and a gymnast, so in other words, she was smoking hot. Guys were constantly hitting on her, and frankly, I was a jealous wreck most of the time. Even when she got pregnant with Maddie, she still looked amazing. Sure, she put on a few pounds, that's normal. After Maddie was born, Morgan lost the weight, no problem. But her pregnancy with our daughter, Alyssa, was a completely different story. She gained over 38 pounds, and it never went away, no matter what she tried. Then, 3 years later, she had Kylan, gaining another 36 pounds in the process. All in all, she was up over 74 pounds. Over the next few years, we spent thousands of dollars on gym memberships, personal trainers, classes, diet programs, and meal delivery services. Money we didn't really have. She got blood work done to check her hormones, met with a nutritionist, had her body fat checked in one of those fancy water pods, and every test in between. Nothing helped. And to make matters worse, not only did she not lose weight with each attempt, she would actually gain additional weight in the process. Usually just a few pounds from where she started. It was almost as if her body was trying to get back at her for dieting in the first place. Now, since Morgan was having such trouble with her weight, I was really beginning to worry about her health. She was always out of breath and she never had any energy. So when she started suffering from dizzy spells and lightheadedness, we decided to visit the doctor. After her checkup, we got some bad news. The doctor looked at my wife and said the dumbest thing I'd ever heard a doctor say in my life. Morgan, he said, without even a shred of empathy, I think you could stand to lose a few pounds. As he said it, he smiled and patted her on the knee. Look, I've known our doctor for years, but I swear at that moment I wanted to sock him one. Morgan was devastated. She looked defeated and hopeless, on the verge of giving up. After the appointment, she moped around the house for weeks. I knew I had to do something to cheer her up, so I decided to surprise her with a trip to Hawaii. At first, Morgan didn't want to go. All she could think about was how fat she would look in her bathing suit. At home, she could cover up and stay inside, but on the beach, well, there's nowhere to hide. The last time we were in Hawaii was for our honeymoon. At that time, she barely weighed 110 pounds. She looked amazing in her bikini and was so proud of her body. Now, she was closer to 200 pounds and hadn't worn a bikini in years. Even the thought of walking around in shorts and a tank top terrified her and sent shivers down her spine. You need to get away. Relax and clear your mind, I said, convinced that time away, along with the peaceful sound of the ocean, would be just the thing she needed. The next day, we went shopping. We must have gone into every swimsuit store in town. At the mall, we spent 4 hours in the department store trying on every single swimsuit and wrap. Finally, she gave up. She'd had enough, and we had nothing to show for it. Overwhelmed with emotion, Morgan cried all the way home, depressed and defeated. She looked at me and she said, I don't think I can go. You probably have more fun without me anyway. But in the end, she reluctantly agreed to it. 2 weeks later, we were on the plane where that little girl made those hurtful comments. But that wasn't even the worst part. As the flight crew started going over the safety precautions, one of the male flight attendants looked over at Morgan and in front of the whole plane asked, Ma'am, will that seatbelt fasten around you or do you need an extender? I thought Morgan was going to die. Honestly, if I wasn't worried about getting arrested and thrown off the plane, I would have knocked his block off. It was like throwing salt on a fresh wound. And for the remainder of the flight, Morgan stared out the window, suffering in silence and alone in her thoughts. She finally cried herself to sleep. Now, as we flew across the ocean, I felt like I made a huge mistake. Even now, when I think back to that trip, it tears me up inside to admit that I never should have taken Morgan to Hawaii and put her in such a vulnerable position. I just had such wonderful memories of Hawaii, and for some strange reason, I thought I could experience that kind of joy again. I was wrong. Morgan barely left the hotel room the entire time we were there. I spent most of the time alone on the beach, hanging out by the pool. as Morgan hid from the world. The one day she decided to join me at the beach, a group of women in bikinis set up right next to us. They were in their 20s and all of them were slender. They were laughing and having such a great time, not a care in the world. Within minutes, Morgan excused herself and never joined me again. I may as well have been alone in Hawaii. When we got home, things didn't get any better. The trip drove Morgan into a deep depression and I couldn't snap her out of it. Morgan and I had both hit rock bottom. The whole thing had put a terrible strain on our marriage. It broke my heart to see her so sad, and I felt so guilty. I was only trying to help. Then one night, my daughter Maddie crawled into my lap as I was watching TV. She asked me, "Daddy, why is Mommy so unhappy?" I replied, "Mommy's just going through some changes. She'll be okay." Maddie nodded, and then as she got up to leave, she said something I will never forget. "Daddy, please help her." I looked at her and promised her I would. I needed to find a way to help my wife. She had always trusted me to take care of her, and now she needed me more than ever. I was determined to find a way to get her back to feeling confident about her body while restoring her shattered self-esteem and broken self-image. So the next morning, I got up early. I fired up my laptop and started on my journey. As I did, there was one thing that I just couldn't wrap my head around. Why is it that some people stay slender, healthy, and fit, regardless of what they eat? We've all witnessed a thin person gobbling down pizza and burgers, and yet they never gain even an ounce of fat. It's as if all the fatty, greasy, sugary food simply passes right through them. So after thousands of online searches and reading hundreds of blogs, articles, and research papers, here's what I discovered. Now, as you're probably aware, fat cells control the ease with which you gain or lose weight. When you gain weight, those fat cells get larger as they fill with fat. When you lose weight, the opposite happens. Fat cells get smaller. Pretty straightforward, but that's not all fat cells do. You see, when fat cells expand, they release the hormone leptin. Leptin controls our appetite, food cravings, and how hungry we are. When leptin levels are low, we feel hungry and are driven to eat. But when leptin levels are higher, we feel full and our cravings stop. You've probably heard all this before, but what I just told you, it's only half the story. You see, when leptin was first discovered back in 1994, scientists thought they had discovered the cure for obesity. In fact, they even referred to leptin as the anti-obesity hormone. Researchers theorized that overweight men and women simply don't produce enough leptin, which causes them to overeat. They also thought by increasing leptin levels, they'd be able to control their appetites, keeping them full and satisfied. But when they tested this theory, things didn't go as planned. Up until then, all the studies showed that this protein made really fat mice into skinny mice. It was incredible. So they thought, hey, we'll just make leptin pills and everybody will be skinny. Well, like most things in biology, it turns out that it's a little more complicated than that. In fact, leptin injections only worked on mice and humans who were genetically leptin deficient. The rest of us, well, we were out of luck. And recently, a new theory is pointing to something called leptin resistance. Put simply, it's the thought that your body makes more than enough leptin, but it's just not sensitive to it. But again, it appears that that theory is only half right. You see, leptin isn't the only issue. There are a whole range of other hormones involved, including ghrelin, cortisol, and insulin. The problem is that nobody seems to know how it all works. So, where do we start? And more importantly, how can we use the information to lose weight? Well, it turns out that there is one more step in the fat loss equation that a lot of people aren't talking about. And it's a step involving the little energy producers in your cells called the mitochondria, also known as your body's energy-producing battery. So, whether you gain weight or remain slender depends on the dynamics of your mitochondria. And it's the mitochondria that controls your body's ability to create energy out of the food you eat. In other words, these little energy factories control your metabolism, and they do it through something called mitochondrial crosstalk. You see, when it comes to leptin, insulin, or any of your fat-burning hormones, nothing happens without healthy mitochondria. Because that's where food is made into energy. That's where fat is really burned. And when it comes to weight loss, the majority of mitochondrial crosstalk occurs in the brain. More specifically, it's controlled by leptin and insulin action in the area of the brain called the hypothalamus. It's also where insulin and leptin sensitivity comes into play. In other words, insulin and leptin both play key roles in a healthy metabolism. But it's your mitochondria that drives the entire process. So if you want to lose weight, what you really want is for your mitochondria to convert your stored fat into energy. If you want to support healthy blood sugar already within normal ranges, what you really want is for your mitochondria to metabolize sugar faster than it gets delivered to them. In fact, supporting healthier and more efficient mitochondria in turn supports a healthier and more efficient metabolism. And according to researchers at Yale University School of Medicine, it's the mitochondria that regulates appetite. In a recent study, Yale researchers discovered that when transitioning from a fasting to an overfed state, mitochondria in nerve cells that promote hunger show dynamic changes that are the opposite of those found in nerve cells that control feelings of fullness. Without those signals, we overeat, no matter how much leptin we have. Researchers at Newcastle University in the UK found that having healthy mitochondria is closely associated with healthy weight loss. And mitochondrial fat-burning capabilities are associated with more energy and more efficient weight loss, and the opposite is also true. Now, as a civil engineer, it all made perfect sense. The entire system is interrelated. When everything is up to code and working properly, the integrity of our overall structure is much stronger, and when our ability to convert fuel into energy is optimized, the whole system works better. Which means all of the excess fuel in the form of fat is burned away much more efficiently. Bottom line, healthy weight loss is deeply rooted inside the mitochondria. Now, still, after feeling as if I had finally found the missing piece of the weight loss puzzle, I still wasn't sure how to keep the mitochondria functioning at optimal levels. Then, I found the answer. See, while your mitochondria works hard to produce all the energy your body needs, it does it through a process that creates a lot of waste. The more energy produced, the more waste it creates. Look at any power plant or energy production facility in the world, and you'll see that they all produce waste. It's the accumulation of all this waste that has the potential to create health hazards and poses a threat to every living thing on the planet. And the key to an efficient power plant and its longevity is the safe and responsible disposal of this toxic waste. The same thing occurs in your body. Your mitochondria are no different than a nuclear power plant. In fact, your mitochondria also produce waste products. Now, even though I know the culprit behind belly fat and even what causes it, I realize I still don't know how to fix it. How can you support your mitochondria while ramping up their ability to convert more fat into usable energy? I hit a roadblock. But I can only assume that God had a different plan. See, within the next few days, I was asked to travel all the way to Nepal for work. It seems the Nepali government had decided that they wanted to build roads to every village in the mountainous nation. And of course, they needed bridges to do that. My company won a bid to help them, and it was my job to go there and come up with a plan. It was an incredible opportunity, but I just couldn't stand the thought of leaving my wife behind, especially after what had happened. She was still depressed, and I still felt much guilt. But she insisted that I go, and after much back and forth, I finally agreed to it. But only after she promised me she'd be okay. When I arrived in Nepal, the first thing I noticed was how hard it was to catch my breath. Everything I did had me huffing and puffing for air. Remember, I'm from Colorado, and where I live, we're a little over 5,000 feet above sea level, so I'm used to living at high elevations. But Nepal is more than twice that. Over the next few days, my energy levels really started to sag. I was so busy with work that I tried not to think about it, but it was tough. I could barely function. Then, one evening, after a particularly long and grueling day, I was having dinner with a group of local workers, and I met a man named Kiran. As we were talking, I told him how low my energy was and how tired I felt. He just looked at me and laughed. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a small sack. Kiran proceeded to tell me that the sack contained a special ancient tea that he and the other workers from his village drank every day. Come to find out that Kiran comes from a long line of real-life Himalayan Sherpas who work as guides on Mount Everest. Many of them also work at local construction jobs to make ends meet. So when they come down from the higher elevations, they drink this tea so that when they return, their body can still function at those altitudes. He winked at me and jokingly told me not to tell anyone their secret. But he claimed that this tea was responsible for the Sherpa's ability to climb all the way to the top of Mount Everest while carrying equipment and supplies more than twice their weight, with some doing it as often as every few weeks. Then Kiran excused himself and returned a few minutes with a steaming hot cup of water. He scooped some of the tea into the cup and he handed it to me. When I first smelled the tea, it had a sweet, almost flowery smell. But then I took a sip of it and I almost gagged. I tell you, it tasted terrible. He laughed and told me it was an acquired taste, but he assured me it would do the trick. So over the next few days, I forced myself to drink the tea. And I have to say, as bad as it tasted, it made me feel incredible. I was so full of energy. I could take deep breaths, and I felt like $1,000,000. It was truly amazing. But then something else happened, something I never expected. I started losing weight. At first, I just noticed that my pants were a little looser than normal, but then after a couple weeks, I had to wear a belt just to keep them from falling down. But it wasn't until I was on a Skype call with Morgan that it really hit me. She said, "Your face looks so much thinner. Have you lost weight? Maybe I should come to Nepal." We both laughed, but then, like a bolt of lightning, it hit me. I was eating and drinking a ton. In fact, I was eating even more than usual, yet I was still losing weight. Then I began to notice that everyone around me was thin. But why? After all, they all ate a lot of rice, sausage, and other high-carb foods like momo, a popular kind of dumpling in Nepal, and yet they were still extremely fit and thin. It had to be the tea. I knew I had to bring some home to Morgan, but I was almost out. The next day, I asked Kiran if he could bring me the recipe so that when I got home, I could make it for her. Unfortunately, he didn't know what was in it, but he promised he would ask his grandfather who made the tea when he got back home. A few days later, Kiran was headed home, but he promised me he would send me the recipe. I thanked him, and that was the last I saw him. A week later, a new worker named Minesh arrived. He walked up to me and he handed me a piece of paper with some writing on it. It was the recipe from Kiran. Less than a week later, it was time for me to leave. When I got home, I told Morgan all about the tea. I told her how it helped me with my energy and how great it made me feel, and she could see how much weight I'd lost. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of the tea left, but I had the recipe. The next day I called my friend Emily, who worked at a compounding pharmacy in Boulder, to see if she could help me find the ingredients. I've known Emily for years. In fact, we went to college together. She was a nutrition major, and right out of college, Emily went to work for one of the country's largest weight loss companies. I won't tell you who it is, but trust me when I say you've definitely heard of them. They're one of those billion-dollar companies you see celebrities pitching on TV. Emily worked there for over 7 years, but there's one thing she said never made a lot of sense to her, and that was the fact that a lot of the people who worked there were overweight. Even with free access to all of the programs, they were all still fat. That's when Emily let me in on what she called the weight loss industry's 3 dirty little secrets. Secrets that she said added billions of dollars of profit to their bank account. She likened the whole thing to a pyramid scheme. Desperate people looking to lose weight. Maybe they have a wedding, a high school reunion, or some other special event that they want to look good for. They start the diet and manage to lose a few pounds, but in virtually 95% of all cases, they gain it all back again and then some, only to return when they have a new reason to lose weight. Listen, how many times have you talked to somebody who used one of those big corporate weight loss programs? Sure, they lost a little weight, maybe a lot, but it never lasts. In fact, it's the biggest secret of all. Diets don't help you lose weight. If they did, we'd all be able to lose weight and keep it all off. That's also the reason there are so many different diet plans out there. Low calorie, low fat, low carb. It's all nonsense and none of it really works. They just know that if they keep adding new angles to their programs, you'll keep coming back. In fact, research from UCLA shows that 95% of diets don't work. In reality, 97% of dieters regain everything they lost and then some within 3 years. Plus, Extreme dieting can lead to all sorts of nutritional deficits and a wide range of other health problems, including more weight gain. Truth is, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off, you have to address the root cause. The second biggest weight loss secret: don't rely on exercise alone to help you lose weight. In fact, exercise can often come up short. Did you know that running on a treadmill for an hour only burns a few hundred calories? And the benefits stop the moment you step off. Plus, your body wants to get those calories back, so the cravings kick in. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't exercise, but the fact is, more exercise isn't the answer to losing weight. A more efficient metabolism is, and supporting healthy mitochondria plays a primary role in metabolism. Finally, the last weight loss secret, and potentially the most problematic, is the fact that with each weight loss attempt, your metabolism can slow down even more. That's right. See, every time you go on a diet, your metabolism slows. Besides the increase in weight products I told you about earlier, your body begins to conserve energy. That's why you feel so run down when you diet. It's also why we gain all the weight back. With each crash diet, we make it that much harder to lose weight the next time. And it was because of this that Emily finally decided to leave her job. She got into health and nutrition to help people, and she wasn't seeing the changes she knew were possible. For a few years, Emily traveled the world, working with a variety of natural healers, learning, absorbing, and discovering ways to actually help people instead of just taking their money. During her travels, she spent time in Bali, Thailand, and China. So she was well versed in ancient remedies. So when I shared with her the list of ingredients Kieran had sent over, she knew exactly how they all worked. Now, the first ingredient was kucha tea. Kucha tea was first grown in Yunnan, China, which is located at the far edge of the Himalayas. It contains a compound called methylliberine, which has been shown to stimulate the release of two very powerful energy neurotransmitters called epinephrine, or adrenaline, and norepinephrine, noradrenaline. They are responsible for increasing energy, focus, alertness, and liberating fatty acids, body fat, for energy. It also activates the D1 and D2 dopamine receptors in the brain, which enhance your body's release of dopamine. Dopamine is responsible for motivation, determination, satisfaction, pleasure, reward, and drive. That's why the Sherpas have so much energy and focus. But most importantly, kucha tea has a protective effect on mitochondria. What's more, this ancient tea helps to accelerate the rate at which your mitochondria can convert stored fat into energy. The next ingredient was apple cider vinegar. And while it's known as one of the oldest and most widely known ancient remedies, according to the Journal of Nutritional Medicine, it's also a mitochondrial supercharger. That's because apple cider vinegar is full of malic acid, which perks up your mitochondria. And according to Dr. Earl Mindell, author of Prescription Alternatives, apple cider vinegar's acetic acid also suppresses appetite, making it easier to stop eating. The next ingredient was punica granatum, or simply pomegranate extract. What's interesting about pomegranate extract is that it also works by activating and supporting the mitochondria. In one study published in the journal Nature Medicine, researchers found that a molecule found in pomegranates helps to reestablish a cell's ability to recycle the components of the mitochondria. It also helps to relaunch the mitochondrial cleanup process. Next on the list was ginger and turmeric. Both of these ancient compounds have been clinically proven to boost mitochondrial function. Ginger, for example, has been shown to increase both mitochondrial size and mitochondrial DNA content, as well as key gene expression related to mitochondrial production. And curcumin, the active molecule in turmeric, has recently been shown to protect mitochondria from damage. It's also been shown to help improve both their structure and function. Gardenia was the next ingredient in the tea. Gardenia extract contains the chemical genopin, which, according to researchers, helps support mitochondrial function. It also helps support the insulin levels already in the normal range. The blend also contained citrus bioflavonoids, which have also been associated with an increase in mitochondrial function. The final ingredient was something called Nigella sativa, which is also known as black cumin. Since the times of the Bible, black cumin seeds have been used to promote optimal health, but one of its most powerful benefits is its ability to help support healthy mitochondrial function. All in all, Kieran's tea recipe included 8 incredible ingredients, all clinically proven to support mitochondrial function and boost their ability to convert stored fat into usable energy. In other words, boost mitochondrial energy. Now, furthermore, the mixture was also shown to support normal blood sugar levels and blood pressure levels, as well as a healthy brain, heart, and joints. When I got home, I fired up my computer and double-checked each and every ingredient. Sure enough, they were as powerful as she had said. Yet not a single doctor or the weight loss gurus had ever mentioned them to me or Morgan. All they wanted was to keep prescribing her medication, keep her coming back in for new workouts, diets, and lab work. It was a revolving door, and I was going to finally put a stop to it. By then, I was convinced that this tea had not only held the key to rescuing my wife from her belly fat prison, but also for millions of Americans struggling to decipher the weight loss industry's misinformation. I was focused and I was ready to share my discovery with the world. But then I hit another unexpected roadblock. See, with Emily's help, we spent weeks tracking down the absolute best sources for each of the 8 ingredients from all over the world. And I spent thousands of dollars to do it. Then another few weeks extracting the seeds, oils, and extracts. Afterwards, we had to dry them all out, grind them down, and fine-tune the ratios. When it was all said and done, I had maybe enough to last Morgan a week. Not to mention, the entire process was extremely grueling and painstaking. Luckily, I had Emily to help me. There's no way I could have done it without her. But I quickly realized I couldn't do this every week. I needed to figure out a way to do it faster and cheaper. So, after talking it through with Emily, I decided it would be best if I bought all the ingredients in bulk and then outsourced the entire process to a certified manufacturing facility. And instead of making it into a tea, which did taste terrible, Emily suggested I put the blend into easy-to-swallow capsules instead. She made a few phone calls for me, and right from the get-go, we narrowed it down to just one facility. See, I had one request that was non-negotiable, and that was that every single ingredient had to be as pure as possible, which meant each one of them needed to be sourced from a high-quality vendor and processed under the strictest of standards. It blows my mind how many cheap suppliers there are out there and how inferior their ingredients are. It's no wonder people don't get results. But thanks to Emily, we found a facility that was both FDA registered and GMP certified. In other words, they adhered to the highest government standards. Plus, they had a full team of formulation scientists on staff to help us improve our formula using modern science and the latest technology. Remember, this recipe was 6,000 years old, so I welcomed their suggestions to tweak the formula, alter the quantities, or add additional ingredients to make this powerful blend even better. In other words, make it more effective and 100% safe. So, when I was given the chance to sit down with their head of research, Dwayne Curtis, I jumped at the chance. Now, I don't know what Dwayne thought of my story, or whether or not he even believed me. He just sat there, nodding his head, as I retold the story of Nepal, Kiran, and the fat-burning tea. For a moment, I was terrified that he would tell me that none of it made sense, and that we were all just wasting our time. But to my surprise, that's not what he said at all. Instead, grinning from ear to ear, he looked at me and said, "Your blend is truly incredible. In fact, I've never seen anything quite like it, and the science is all spot on." Mr. Curtis agreed to help us with the formula and work towards making it even better, especially since both his wife and his daughter were struggling with their weight. He was looking forward to having them try it. To be honest, he said, for years research has shown that mitochondria play a key role in weight loss and metabolism. And frankly, I think you've just discovered something very powerful. With that, Dwayne got to work immediately. Besides just tweaking the dosages for each ingredient to maximize their effectiveness, he added a few additional ingredients designed to supercharge the formula's ability to burn away unwanted fat. Aside from adjusting the dosages for maximum effects, Dwayne added a more potent and concentrated form of the kucha tea extract, methylliberine, called Dynamid. Next, he added the powerful fat burner fucoxanthin, a seaweed extract discovered by a team of Japanese microbiologists. Fucoxanthin works by activating key proteins within the mitochondria, which in turn accelerate fat loss. He added chromium, known for its ability to lower your appetite, burn more calories, cut your body fat, and boost muscle mass. And berberine, due to its ability to support mitochondrial health. And the final touch, piperine, a powerful black pepper extract proven to enhance nutrient absorption. Now, I was shocked when he told me what he'd done. I couldn't believe it. The formula was now the most powerful fat burner I had ever seen or could have ever imagined. What's more, because it's not a drug and it's 100% natural, not to mention the facility that produced our capsules is FDA registered and GMP certified, there was no waiting around for approval. I just needed to find someone willing to try it. Now, I would have been first in line, but I had already lost 18 pounds when I was in Nepal, and that was just using the basic formula. We needed someone who desperately needed to lose weight. And that person was Morgan. All she needed to do was take 2 capsules with a glass of water first thing in the morning. She agreed to try it, but by now she had very little faith that there was anything out there that could help. And frankly, who could blame her? But even with all the skepticism deep down, she still had hope. She also knew how much time and effort I'd put into finding a way to help her, and she didn't want to let me down. So she reluctantly agreed to try it. During the first few days, she didn't really notice a whole lot other than the fact that she felt like she had more energy. I watched in disappointment as each day she stepped on the scale and the numbers didn't budge. Each time she'd step off the scale with an "I told you so" look on her face. Each morning I had to beg her to continue, reminding her that it was still early and she hadn't really given it enough time. Then, on day 8, the scale finally started to change. She was down 3 pounds. Well, 2.8 to be exact, but it was so close. I was thrilled, but Morgan wasn't getting her hopes up just yet. Then, something incredible happened. For 2 weeks straight, Morgan lost weight every day, but that was just the beginning. I decided to take her to our favorite local Italian restaurant for dinner to put this formula to the ultimate test. They had the best Italian food on the planet, and their tiramisu was legendary. But she only ate half of her lasagna, and when I asked her if she wanted me to order dessert, she said, "No thanks, I'm full." Immediately, we both looked at each other in disbelief, and then burst out laughing. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't hungry, even when her favorite dessert was on the menu. We couldn't believe it. It seemed like once her body overcame its cellular energy crisis, her cravings disappeared. Her body was now easily accessing stored fat and flooding her body with usable energy. And the best part? She was never hungry. In fact, she was still eating all of her favorite foods, including pasta, burgers, and even the occasional indulgence of tiramisu. But she wasn't overeating them. She never once had to use her willpower to stop eating. Instead, she found out that it came naturally. Sometimes she couldn't even finish a meal. I couldn't believe it. I watched as my wife magically regained her figure. Each day, she looked more and more like the woman I married, until one day, May 12th to be exact, she came running into my home office with nothing on her but a robe and an enormous grin on her face. "Guess what?" she asked. "What?" I replied with a confused yet interested look on my face. Then, dropping her robe to the floor, she said, "I now weigh the same today as I did on our wedding day." There she was, standing in front of me without a stitch of clothes on, and she looked amazing. There was no embarrassment, no shame, or any of that. She stood there confident, beautiful, and sexier than ever. I couldn't believe it. I finally had my wife back, and she was hot. All in all, she lost over 74 pounds. To celebrate, we went shopping for a whole new wardrobe. None of her clothes fit anymore, and the days of the baggy sweats, oversized t-shirts, and muumuus was over. It was time for her to show off her figure, look sexy, and wear clothes that accentuated her slender body, not cover it up. Her clothes now fit like they were supposed to, and I could see her confidence grow with each